the prayer of faith. Meditation is preeminently the prayer of faith. We know Christ not through thought primarily, but through faith. And meditation, pure prayer, is the prayer of faith. Leaving words and thoughts and so on behind leaves us with the word, the mantra, the act of pure faith. And it makes us realize by experience what faith is. That faith is not our systems of belief. Faith is not the same as our theology. Faith is our relationship with another person. Faith is our capacity to be in relationship. We talk, for example, about being faithful to our community, faithful in marriage, faithful in friendship. Faith is the capacity we have and the gift we have to be in relationship. And it is only when we are in relationship that we can know another person. It is not so much the thoughts that we have, but the relationship that we have. Most of us received the beginning of our relationship with Christ as children. Jesus was like a family friend. One of the grown-ups in our families, friend of our parents and priests and teachers. But as we mature, we come to know this family friend as a mature person in our own right, to know him personally. Faith grows and develops. And our faith in Jesus is built not upon what is said about him, so much as what he has said about himself. Built upon his own self-knowledge. That is where his authority lies. Just as our own faith in ourselves, for example, is built much more upon what we know about ourselves than what others may say about us. And what Jesus has said about himself is this, the 7 I ams of Jesus. I am the true vine. I am the way, the truth, the life. I am the door. I am the bread of life. I am the good shepherd. I am the light of the world. I am the resurrection and the life. What those terms suggest to us is Jesus revealing himself to us, not as an object of worship, not as a cult figure, but as a teacher, calling for our total reverence and love, as a guide, calling for our total trust and abandonment, as a brother, as a friend, call you servants no longer but friends, one who we know loved his own in this world, one who is not a moralist, but a liberator, a teacher of the way, a guide, the door, the way, with him in the Spirit to the Father. Do we most effectively mature our faith by prayer, by depth of prayer. Our prayer is always deepening and maturing. We move perhaps beyond certain types of prayer, not because they're bad, but because we simply grow into a deeper friendship, deeper relationship with Christ. Maybe when we begin this relationship, we rely to a large extent upon photographs, mental images of this person. But as we mature ourselves, as we become more capable of human relationship, then this photograph, mental image of Christ gives way more and more to the encounter with the real person. This encounter that occurs primarily at the level of our heart, our personal experience, but also then of course becomes wonderfully enriched in the Eucharist, in Scripture, in community, all the other ways in which we also encounter this risen person of Jesus. The Spirit is constantly at work in us, preparing us to see him, to see Jesus more and more clearly. The starting point, I think, is to know that Jesus is finding us, the lost sheep, Jesus talks far more in the Gospels about God seeking us than about the human duty of seeking God. And our faith in Jesus is built on this confidence that He dwells within us, seeking us in the sense that by seeking us He draws us away from our ego into our true self. That's the journey of Christian prayer, with Jesus in the Spirit to the Father. What He teaches us on prayer in the Gospel of Matthew, for example, Sermon on the Mount, points us towards this experience of the indwelling presence within our own hearts, in interiority, in faith, in trust, in attention, set your mind upon the kingdom, and in peace beyond worry and anxiety. He teaches us the way of pure prayer. But above all, He teaches us by praying with us and in us. Christ is at prayer in us. The mind of Christ, the human consciousness of Christ, in us. So Christ is at prayer in us through a mysterious union. And He is the master of prayer. Prayer of Jesus, the incarnate Word, is the perfect prayer of the human being. No one could do it better. And therefore He is the one who teaches us to pray. He is the master of pure prayer. He meditates within us, realizing His true self as the Son in union with the Father, just as we realize our true self, a prayer that is in the Spirit. His prayer beyond thoughts and words, beyond the ego, His true self, one with the Father, and simultaneously one with us. That's the mystery of Christian prayer. Jesus, who is one with the Father, is present within each of us also, each of us uniquely and universally. To see Him is to see the Father. So the starting point of Christian prayer is that we enter into the prayer of Christ through our union with His human consciousness. And we must find our true self in order to find Him. We must leave self behind in order to follow Him. This is from the Gospel of John again. So the Word became flesh. He came to dwell among us, and we saw His glory, such glory as befits the Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. Out of His full store we have all received grace upon grace. For while the law was given through Moses, grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. No one has ever seen God, but God's only Son, He who is nearest to the Father's heart. He has made Him known.